All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So, today we're going to be talking about the Washington administration. Basically, what happened when Washington became president. And, you have to remember, this is the first time we had a legitimate president, um, Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury. This is the first time these guys ever had this type of job. So if you want to become a welder or a teacher or a psychologist or whatever, there's always been somebody else who did that job before you. So you can always learn from them. But remember, this is the first time anyone had these Secretary of State jobs and things like that. So if they messed up, it's on them, because again, they're learning as they go along. That's what makes this situation unique. Okay. So we're going to analyze the team that Washington had in his cabinet. We're going to examine Alexander Hamilton's plan to get rid of the national debt, and we're going to create an argument on why the Ninth and 10th Amendment are vague. Now, in class, I asked everyone, does anyone know what vague means, that word? Some students understood, they got it. Vague means with like no detail, all right? It's kind of like if you ever went to a party with your friends and your parents say, parents or guardian, whoever, says, when are you coming back? And you say later, that's being vague. You're not saying 3 hours from now, 8 hours, 48 hours. You're not saying anything. You're just saying later. Just, it's not now. It'll be, later down the road. Okay. That's being vague. Okay. All right. So here's your warm up question. Now, you notice the question has two parts to it. The first one says Washington wants to expand, right? But there's something standing in his way. What is that? Okay, so this picture is pretty straightforward as what's in his way. Okay, um, the second question says, how would you describe Washington's expression? Okay, so again, Washington's with the guy with the sword, as you can see. Hopefully, you see that. Uh, how would you describe that look on his face? All right, if you had to pick one word, what would that be? Okay, so again, the warm up question has two parts. What is standing in Washington's way from expanding? And how would you describe his facial expression? Okay, so think about it, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. So, in the summer of 1789, Congress had been in the job for, 3, 4 months or so, and they realized, oh my gosh, Washington and Adams can't do this job by themselves. They need some help, to run our country. So Congress, decided to create three executive departments and one office. Okay. So they created the Department of State. This person's job, whoever the Secretary of State is, even to this day, they're supposed to know what's going on in our country. Okay. So they're supposed to tell the president, this is happening here, this is happening here, this is happening here. This isn't an issue right now, but just, we'll keep an eye on it. This thing is getting bigger. We might want to need to address this soon, things like that. Okay. Department of War, self explanatory. Now, thing is, Washington wanted somebody who knew war like him, right? Who was at his level or higher, and there was nobody better than Henry Knox. Henry Knox was a pretty smart guy when it came to war and tacticians and things like that. So Washington's like, yeah, I want the best of the best. Henry Knox is one of the best. So get him. Department of Treasury. This person's job is to maintain the money our government spends. How much money we're getting in, how much we're spending, where the money goes, you know, how to get the government more money, how to spend what we have, be frugal. I mean, whatever the case may be. Okay, so he is somebody who knew finances for that position. The last one is the attorney general. This is the person who is our nation's lawyer in a sense. Okay, so like even now to this day, if the United States wants to prosecute somebody, let's say you know, a mob member or a cartel member, some of that, someone who did something really bad to the United States, they would then have this guy or girl, whoever maybe, um, try to put them in jail. So at that time, Washington chose Edmund Randolph because he knew, hey, this guy's is a hell of a lawyer. He's really smart when it comes to law. So this guy, okay. So again, Washington got to choose his cabinet. Now, when it came to the Secretary of State, somebody who would know what's going on in our country, there was nobody better than Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson just knew what was happening. Everyone was telling him things. Either they told him or he found out. Okay. Uh, Again, he knew what's happening, and he was a perfect guy for the job. For the Department of Treasury, the Secretary of Treasury, there was nobody better than Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton was a financial guru. Okay, he knew how money worked and how to get it to work for you. Like I've told students in class, if he was here nowadays, he would be playing the stock market like crazy and easily be a millionaire. Easily. Okay. Um, so yeah, he knew his stuff with finance. Now, Congress also organized the Supreme Court, and the president gets to pick who is the Chief Justice. And Washington picked John Jay. Again, a friend of his and some of that, but he also knew, hey, this guy knows the law. Okay. Yeah, his lawyering day, being a lawyer days might be over, more likely are over, but he knows the law, how to interpret the law and some of that. So he would be a great justice. And so he was. Now, if you remember from the last lesson, um, when creating the Constitution, the Federalists, including Washington, made a promise to the Anti Federalists that they were going to add a Bill of Rights. They promised. They gave their word. Remember, I told you back then you kept your word. You're a man of your word. So Washington and the Congress, the Federalist people said, okay, yeah, we promised, so let's do it. So in the summer of 1789, they started working on the amendments. And by December 1791, they ratified the Bill of Rights, which are the first 10 amendments. Now, if you notice, like I told the class, 1789 they started, and December 1791 they finished. Why did it take 2 years? Well, a lot of things was because of the wording of it. What did it mean? And some people didn't. They thought, oh, we should add this, we should add that, we should take away this, we should take away that. So it took a lot of compromising and negotiating and things like that. So that's why it took quite a while to um, to get it approved. Now, the first 8 amendments protect your rights as individuals. Okay. Uh, First Amendment, freedom of speech, religion, press, grievance against the governments. Um, Second Amendment protects your weapons, so that you can use them to fight enemies if they come into your state, if your state needs militia. Um, Fourth Amendment, what the authorities can take from your house, what do they need in order to do that, make it legal. Um, things about probable cause. Fifth Amendment, what happens in your trial, things like that. So yeah, and it keeps going on to, you know, uh, torture. Is it allowed in prison? Not. Things about bail. You know, so it goes quite a bit. Okay, and then next year you'll learn this in your government class. Okay, with me. Now, the Ninth Amendment says, because you have to remember when they wrote this out, these guys who wrote it, they were smart. And just like all smart people, they know that they don't know everything. Okay. And they knew they couldn't tell the future. So they basically put the Ninth Amendment says, in a nutshell, just because we didn't write it down or we didn't think of it doesn't mean that people don't have the right to it. Okay. Because you have to remember something like The internet. Did they have the internet back then? No, they didn't even have electricity back in 1791. You know, so to for them to put that down on the Constitution, that'd be, you know, weird. But it's not there because again, they didn't think of it. They wouldn't have imagined something like that. But the thing is, we have the right to it, the people. You know, so that's why we have it now. The 10th Amendment says any power not specified given to the federal government goes to the states and the people. So another example of this would be like driving. Okay. Now, the government regulates that you drive, how you drive, so that's so they issue licenses, right? But if you notice, they don't issue the license of the United States of America. They give you a California license, Arizona license, a Nevada license, wherever you live. Basically, the state you live, and we here are in California, um, is basically saying, hey, this person's good enough to drive. They passed the requirements to basically say they know how it works, they know how to operate it, um, and we approve them. That's basically what your driver's license does. So if you're driving around the country, let's say you go to Texas, they can't tell you, they pull you over, they can't tell you, well, this is the California license. It's no good here in Texas. You need a Texas license. They can't do that. You know, they have to respect the 10th Amendment, which says if California says you can drive, then they have to let you drive. All right, so now comes the next big issue. Now they took care of that promise of getting the Bill of Rights. Now came the biggest problem they had, which was debt. Okay, the country was in severe debt, both nationally and statewide. Okay, so Alexander Hamilton, the guy you see in that picture right there, came up with a plan to pay off all the debts, the government and all the states. Basically, he told them, all the states, um, give us your debt. Okay, give us your debt. Tell whoever you owe money to, whether it's another country, bank, whoever, that we, the federal government, will take your debt. Now, a lot of states jumped on it in a heartbeat. They're like, heck yeah, sure, take it. We'll tell them. Don't worry. You know, um, and what ends up happening is some states were like, wait. What's the catch? There has to be a catch because something's not right here. And Hamilton's like, okay, yes, there is a catch. You gotta stop printing your state dollars. Stop using those state dollars and use a federal dollar. Use the national bank, which I want to create, dollar. Because you have to remember, every state had their own dollar back then. So if you had a New York dollar, chances are, if you went to Connecticut, you really couldn't use that New York dollar. They wouldn't take it. So it's like you have no money. It's basically trash, you know? So he wanted to have a uniform dollar that we can use anywhere in the country, whether you're going to New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Virginia, South Carolina, wherever. That dollar you have, you can use anywhere. Okay. But in order to do that, they need to create a national bank to manage the country's money. Now, people like Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and other Southerners didn't like this for several reasons. One, their states didn't have much of a debt. So they're like, why should we pay off the debt of these other states? Because they messed up, because they can't handle money, they can't manage money. Why should we pay for it? And the other thing was they felt that this would make the government extremely powerful to have its own bank, you know. Now the thing is, Hamilton and Jefferson collided. They butted heads. Hamilton was like, "Yeah, the only reason your state is making money is because you have slaves. You're not paying people daily, or sorry, not daily, like weekly, monthly, whatever it may be. You paid for them one time, and you're using them. You know. So yeah, of course your state is making money. So yeah, they butted heads like crazy. Now, the thing is, Jefferson and Madison tried to say, well, the bank, this, you can't make a bank, you know, it doesn't say in the Constitution that you can. Well, true. Hamilton's like, yeah, it doesn't say on there you can't make a bank or you can make a bank. It doesn't say anything about banks on there. But Article 1, Section 8 says in the Constitution that the government has the power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper. And he goes, this is necessary. We need to get out of debt. So by having a bank, we will be able to collect taxes. That's something we couldn't do with the Articles of Confederation. You know, we can, get money back. And let's say people say, oh, I don't have the money. Try to make excuses like that. Well, you know what? We're a bank. We can take your home, you take your land, anything valuable that you have, we can seize your assets, things like that. So they mean business. And now that's what the government needed. That's what he's trying to tell them. We need a teeth, and now we have it. But we need the bank. On top of that, the government can then regulate trade, make sure that no one, whether buyer or seller, was getting too good of a deal so that it was basically fair for everyone. And he said, you know what, on top of that, if, since we're going to be making money as a country, we can then start buying things like soldiers, ships for our navy, things like that, instead of asking states, can you give us soldiers, can we borrow soldiers or militia, some of that. No, they can just get their own um get their own soldiers, pay for their food, their time, get them their equipment and things like that. Well, the thing is, Madison and Jefferson still didn't like it, but somewhere along the line, the banking idea passed. There was a meeting between like Hamilton, Jefferson, and a bunch of the other guys in the South, and they said, we'll agree to your banking idea, but we want something in return. So Hamilton's like, well, what do you want? And they said, we want the capital to be in southern land. Hamilton's like, that's all you want? They're like, yeah, okay, we can do that. Because you have to remember, originally the capital was in Philadelphia. Okay, it wasn't Washington D.C. when we started. It was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So now they agreed to send it down to the south. Well, Washington had his eye on this chunk of land, and he said, "I know a perfect spot." Okay, and they're like, oh, "Okay, Washington, show us where it's at." He takes them and shows them, and they're like, "This is swampland. What the hell is this?" You know, and he's like, "This would be perfect. Imagine buildings like this, and the Capitol right here, and the presidential house right there, and Congress over here." And they're like, "Sure, yeah." You have to remember, they love Washington, and he's saying he has this vision for a capital, and they're like, "This is swampland." But hey, Washington wants it, so let's do it. And that's where the District of Columbia is born. Washington, D.C. D.C., District of Columbia. Okay. Now, here's the thing, too. When in most questions, when they say, where's the capital? What state is the capital in? Most people say Maryland. Now, the thing is, they are right, but they are wrong at the same time. Okay. Because yes, it is in Maryland, predominantly in Maryland, but it is also in part of Virginia. Both states donated the land, you know. So yeah, so it is part majority Maryland, but also part Virginia. Now, in Washington's administration, there was only really one incident that really caused the problem, and that was the whiskey tax. Um, the government put a large tax on whiskey, and a lot of Western farmers who were really poor didn't like it. Didn't like these taxes. And again, we as Americans, we don't like taxes. It's just our thing. So what these guys did is they attacked the tax collectors. Remember, these guys are just doing their job, going around places saying, hey, you owe the government so much money, you owe the state so much money, stuff like that. It's a job. It's not like they take joy in it. The thing is, these guys, these farmers, decided to get revenge on these guys. So they would capture them, tar and feather these guys. Now, if you don't know what tar is, it's that black sticky substance they put on the roads when they're making a new road. It's that black sticky substance. And if you ever had your roof redone, um, it's what they put before they put the shingles. Okay. Yeah, it's hot, it's sticky, and like I said, and you can't just grab it and like take it off. This stuff, you have to let it cool in order to take it off. The problem is once it cools, it attaches. And in order for these guys to take it off, they had to rip it off, and it would also rip off their skin. So it was torturous. Imagine that stuff all on the head, on the back, arms, shoulders, and all because they were doing a job. Okay. The other thing they did was rob mail. Now I know that doesn't seem like much because you guys are like, it's junk mail. That's all we ever get. But back then, that was the only form of communication besides face-to-face talking. They didn't have phones. They didn't have internet. You know. So in order to know, if your mom was doing okay, you sent a letter. And sometimes, if your family member, whoever, doesn't get a letter, typically they don't write to you until they get a response back from the letter they sent previously. You know. So yeah, and these guys decided, you know what, we'll take this mail and things like that. Now Washington hears about this rebellion. He's upset because he's like, you know what? Under the Articles of Confederation, the people stood up against the government because they knew the government can't do anything against them. Now the government can. These guys don't want to pay taxes, but you know what? This is a new government. This is not going to be like the old ways where people are, I don't want to pay taxes, so I'm not going to pay them. No, you're going to pay the taxes. You know why? Because I said so. This is a new government, and you know what? We're going to get you guys. So Washington basically tells Knox, don't send any general, corporal, whatever, over there. I'm going to head over there with 13,000 soldiers. So this is like one of the only times a president has ever led a group of soldiers into a battle, a sitting president. So he's riding again on his horse, and they see these guys and they start going at him. Because again, he's like, you know what? Daddy's home. And this is not how we're going to do this in this country now. Where you, the people, I don't want to pay taxes. Well, tough luck. You're going to pay taxes now. Don't mess with the government, and basically kicks their teeth in. Really, really gets them to fall back and realize, like, oh, damn, we're going against actual soldiers. Because again, these guys are just regular people with guns. They're going against trained soldiers who know how to shoot guns in expert level. Okay, now, and again, like I said in class, a lot of people are like, oh, I could shoot a gun, I'm this and that. But if you go get somebody who's trained, who doesn't get scared when a bunch of bullets are flying and some of that, yeah, you're gonna show your true colors. These guys showed the true colors and ran. And Washington was like, exactly. So don't think you could do this again. He beats down the whole country. Y'all are gonna pay your taxes. When the government says and the Congress approves, you're gonna do it. They listened. Now, Washington completed his 2 terms, which is 8 years. And the thing is, people were telling him, you should go for a 3rd term. And he's like, no. And people were like, why? Are you tired of the job? Are you sick of it? And he's like, no, I can do this job again. Another 4 years. It's not that. They're like, well, why? Why don't you want to be president? And he basically tells them, look at guys, like 20 years ago, we fought a revolution to get rid of a king. And now, if I stay on for 12 years, that's basically a king. So, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. Okay. 8 years, that's it. Now, thing is, on his last day, he gives a speech, a farewell speech, and he warns the people, hey, watch out for political parties. They're going to destroy our country, they're going to ruin it. Okay. So, just be careful with them. And oh, how right he was. Right. Now, here's the fun part. A bunch of leaders around the world, when they heard Washington was stepping down, they were just flabbergasted. Like, wait, what? He's doing what? Some leaders, like King George, was like, wait, so, okay, so he's stepping down. Yeah. Do the people don't want him anymore? No, 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 no. People want him. Is he sick? Is he getting too old? Was that? No, no. He said he's fit and fine. He can do another 4 years. So the people want him. They want to give him power. And he's saying no. Yeah, he's stepping down. Like, what the hell? That makes no sense. And the thing is, like I said in class, they emperors and kings and so that around the world, they can't wrap their minds around how could someone give away power. And the thing is, you have to remember, a lot of those king, queens, emperors, they they have been in power for so long, all their lives. They at least had some form of power. So they can't wrap their minds around that. Like, how could someone do that kind of stuff? You know? And again, Washington was born, humble, beginning. He wasn't born from a royal family or anything like that. Um, he earned what he got and then became the president and then decides, you know what, for the best of the country, step down. Right? Now, John Adams becomes our next president. He was elected, he won, he beat out Thomas Jefferson, and Jefferson became his vice president. But the thing is, right before Washington um, left, he made a deal with Britain. Okay. The thing is, imagine there's somebody you cannot stand, you hate with a passion, right? And then your best friend makes peace with them, ends up saying, "Hey, we're cool. Us two, we're cool." How would you feel? A lot of students in class said they'd feel betrayed. They'd feel like, oh, how dare they, things like that. Yeah, and that's exactly how France feels with us. They feel like we backstabbed them because we were their friend. And the thing is, we made peace with Britain, their enemy. And Adams and Washington were like, hey, look, here's the thing. We we're just trying to be cool with them. Okay. It's not that we're taking sides. It's just that there's a bad beef between us because of the revolution. We're trying to calm that down. But we're still cool with you. We're still your friend. France is like, no, no. So they start capturing our ships out in sea. And we have an undeclared war going on. But the thing is, this continues until the 1800s when they finally came to negotiations. Now, the thing is, us and France, um, there's still tension, okay? And it's not a boiling point, but it's like a simmer, okay? All right, so that's the end of the notes. My question to you is this: do you think our country could have survived if we didn't have the best of the best in Washington's cabinet? Again, we had the best Secretary of State, the best Treasury. Again, Alexander Hamilton finding a way to get us out of debt. You think anybody could have else thought of that? Any Joe Schmo, things like that could have basically thought of that. Um, Henry Knox, Edmund Randolph, best lawyer, um, best knowledge of war type of guy. Do you think our country could have survived if we didn't have the best? Or do you think like no, 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 anyone could have done those jobs? What do you think? All right. So go ahead and write your response. Once you finish this question, you're done for the day. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed it. So with that being said, guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later.